Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wonderkamer. This is a podcast about curiosity in which three dilettantes, we're not experts, share with you a tale of the fascinating. We open up the doors of the Wonderkamer and share a fascinating object, something that has occupied or preoccupied us for some time. I am Jen Rempel. I'm here with
Dave Powell
and
Tracy Anderson Powell.
And we are your dilettantes, and we have another story for you today. And today's Tracy. Tracy's going to regale us with a tale.
Today we're talking about three cities in the Canadian Prairie provinces: Winnipeg, Manitoba, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and Calgary, Alberta. We're going to look at their settlement back in the late 19th century and early 20th century.
Okay.
Woohoo! I think.
I mean, don't have the most fondness. I've been to Calgary a couple times. Never been to Winnipeg or Saskatoon. And I know
I've spent a decent amount of time in all three.
Ah, okay.
Winnipeg is a divisive city, but I think I'm pro Winnipeg. Saskatoon is nicer than it should be. And Calgary
Saskatoon is a lovely little city.
Yeah, it's nicer than it should be. It's in Saskatchewan. And Calgary, being an Edmonton chauvinist, is the Shelbyville to our Springfield. And although I disdain Calgary, there's also quite a bit to like about the city, too.
Yeah, that's right. Including being the origins of Dave.
Yes, that's true. Without Calgary,
Winnipeg?
I'd probably be born somewhere else.
Well, I mean, makes sense. I was born somewhere else, as was Tracy.
Yes.
Also in one of those cities.
Most people are born somewhere else, actually. I'm in the minority here. I'm persecuted one, I might add.
I'm from Winnipeg, but I only lived there for the first year or so of my life, so I can't really claim much.
I just think of cold and flat places. Have you guys been back? Oh, Calgary, yes, but back to either?
I was in Winnipeg in 1999 for the summer. I had originally thought about moving there, but after that summer was up and because I was there with a friend, after that summer was up and we came back, then the desire to move to Winnipeg was kind of gone. So I went to Edmonton instead.
Yeah, fair enough.
I've been to Winnipeg a few times, and Saskatoon we went to fairly regularly when Tracy's parents were in Saskatchewan. Part of the pilgrimage.
Makes sense. One day I'll go there.
Albertans need to do the pilgrimage to Saskatchewan at least at some point in their life. It's just, I don't know, part of the ritual here.
It's something you got to do.
Yeah.
Alberta Culture Hour. So that is interesting. Again, something else that's fascinating. We could do an episode about.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tracy, it's
So before we start, let's talk about sex, baby.
Yay!
Sex work specifically. The topic of sex work seems to be divided into two political opinions. The first is that sex work is a form of violence and needs to be abolished, that prostitution is inherently exploitative and violent, that it's something like slavery. The term abolition refers to slavery and frames sex workers as victims. Not only do sex workers not see themselves as victims, but they also consider it trivializing to those who endured slavery.
This is what we would call the wrong opinion, mostly.
I tend to agree with that.
And the second is that sex work is a legitimate form of work and needs the formal protections that any other job has. Promotion of human and labor rights of sex workers. Here's a quote from Prostituted Words, A Time for a New Style Guide by Joyce Arthur. Quote, their ability to work safely is criminalized, and those laws are also society's way of sending a strong message of moral disapproval for sex work. Such official condemnation is hugely stigmatizing against sex workers. It gives cover for predators to kill, assault, and rape sex workers. It encourages prudes to hate or pity them, and it allows prohibitionists to disrespect them and deny their autonomy.
I mean, where's the lie?
That's basically where I am on this is... as we go further in, I'm sure we can rant about our sort of more nuanced thoughts about sex work. But sex workers deserving respect and dignity, proper labor rights, and acceptance and respect in their communities is, I think, absolutely essential.
Yeah. It's the bare minimum, right? It's totally reasonable. Yeah. And again, strict prohibition seems to create a lot of issues too, drives it underground, whereas decriminalization, it can be regulated and, done safely. It's more harm reductionist. But yes, we'll talk about it more, I'm sure.
Today we're combining the two topics, settlement and sex work. What role does sex work play in the settlement of the Canadian provinces? It's an important piece of history, but one that's not really talked about. Why has there been a neglect by historians of this history? It might be from a, quote, over fastidious reluctance to become involved in nasty business, end quote. Here's a quote from James H. Gray's Red Lights on the Prairies. This was the zenith of the scruffy age of bowdlerism, when nothing sexual was ever identified by an Anglo-Saxon noun.
Yeah.
The zenith of the scruffy age of which?
Bowdlerism.
Bowdlerism. Like body. Yeah, bowdlerism.
Bowdlerism.
Bowdlerism. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like the boulderized version of Shakespeare, was where they cut out all the naughty parts.
Oh,
which, again, if you can understand Shakespeare, sure. I don't think it's necessary, but anyway, yeah, it's, anything fun they excise.
I clearly do not understand enough of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so covered up. Like, I mean, it's fine. Yeah, But yeah, they would do the censored versions because they're prim and proper Victorians, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is the scruffy age. So this is the scruffy age of this sort of behavior where, again, nothing sexual is described with an Anglo-Saxon noun, and thus we're using the more Norman-rooted nouns in English in order to describe intimate relations.
Mm-hmm. But in practice...
As opposed to, fugging.
That's right.
Yes.
The Victorians actually in practice were freaks. But...
Oh, yeah.
The word prostitute was considered to be too gamey for publications and police records. Nor did they use the word...
Gamey?
Yeah, gamey.
That implies a scent.
Yeah, I'm like, well, it's evocative.
Nor did they use the words whores, whorehouses, brothels, or bordellos. Instead, they went with the very sanitary inmates and keepers of houses of ill fame.
I mean, yeah, that's proper. I mean, you got a sign in the door, body house, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So let's take a quick look at the sanitized language used by the Calgary Herald in 1907. Two sisters, Helen and Marie Stewart, one a manufactured blonde and the other a thorough brunette, members of the elite sorority of sisters from across Langevin Bridge, were charged with not complying with the law applied to them and were fined $15 each.
Not complying with the law applied to them.
Not complying, yeah.
That
elite
is
sisters of the sorority. It's like
it's not even euphemistic. It's just
no.
It's just completely opaque.
Yeah.
We're charged with illegalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
But illegalities is too strong a word.
Yeah, that's right.
And a second example, my favorite one, Hattie Rogers and Maud Copeland, two languid ladies of the red glim variety, were fined $25 and costs for keeping a disreputable house. Four ladyettes, Eva Hall, Blanche Palmer, Martha Saunders, and C. Thomas, paid $15. They were unable to appear themselves because the hour of 10:30 was very, very early, and they were very, very tired. So they sent lawyer Balache to plead guilty for them.
You know what? Good for them.
Right?
Blanche the Ladyette.
I'm like, did I hear Ladyette? And also, did I hear Red Blum? What was that?
Red Glim.
What is that?
Of the red glim variety.
Yeah, I don't know what a glim is.
Nonetheless, I immediately understand what it means in this context.
Yeah, it's about the best I can do with it. And I've never, ever heard the use of the word ladyettes before. I'm not even sure that is a word.
Ladyette. Well, it's cute. I like it.
A glim is a small light, a candle or lantern. So the red light.
Okay.
So they couldn't even say of the red light variety. They had to use
wow. Obscure term. Wow. Yeah.
I couldn't get up at 10:30 for court. I love it.
And while we're talking about language, we're going to take a look at the language we use today. Well, in 1971, when Red Lights on the Prairies was published, words like prostitute and whores and whorehouses were completely acceptable. Among workers themselves, working girls was quite popular. Instead of using words like prostitute, hooker, whore, or streetwalker, use the term sex worker. The acceptable terms for prostitution are sex work, sex trade, and sex industry. Sex workers' rejection of the term is often based on how the public perceives prostitutes and prostitution rather than an inherent shame in the word itself.
Yeah, there is a prostitute and prostitution have a sort of seedy, pejorative sense to them.
Yeah.
And it's also
very negative.
Yeah, it's negative. And also, again, it's a little euphemistic. Sex work is, good Saxon language and is very bluntly telling you what's going on.
Yes.
This is work and the work is sex.
It's describing a job, not saying this person is a thing, not identifying them with their job. If you call somebody, you're a prostitute, you know what I mean? I mean, yes, you could say you're a lawyer, but you say sex worker, it's that
Well, and
separation, because
prostitution
too often
is
women are judged. Yeah, if you're a
treated
sex
like
worker,
it's treated like this kind of miasma that if you belong to it, you're sort of
yeah.
And it
I
allows
get
for
the sorry.
judgment. It allows for judgments.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
So if you're interested in the language surrounding sex work, please check out the link to Language Matters talking about sex in the episode notes. However, the word prostitution is acceptable when referring to criminal laws surrounding sex work. So please keep all of this in mind as we proceed with this episode.
We will diligently police your language and hit an extremely loud incorrect buzzer when everyone gets it wrong.
All right.
That's a good buzzer. A little harsh. It's kind of like a goat, maybe, but
that's the hooker
scream.
buzzer.
That's not respectful. The goat horn.
Look, the buzzer has no feelings. It cannot be heard.
What was that? Goats?
Yeah, goats scream like people.
Yeah.
Or some goats, anyways. I had a ringtone for notifications for text messages. That was the sound of a goat screaming. And at work, I had my phone in the desk drawer, but I hadn't silenced it. So I'm on the phone with somebody in the middle of this call, and all of a sudden I get a message. And
oh,
yeah,
that
just like
actually
that.
Spine chilling.
So
you did back away from the microphone. Thankfully.
Yeah,
I'm a good boy.
Yeah. So the text message, it's not just one, it's not just two. There's a handful of them. Somebody has added me to a group chat that I don't want to be a part of. And my phone is sitting in my desk screaming away. So while I'm on this call, I open the desk drawer to take out the phone and silence it. And the phone is screaming the whole time. And I feel so bad for whoever was on the other end of that call.
Beating your goat phone to death.
Is somebody being murdered? Is there, goat slaughter going on?
Yeah, goats, people, could be one or the other. All right, so Manitoba joined Canada as the 5th province in 1870. Saskatchewan and Alberta didn't join until 1905. Between 1900 and 1915, more than 1 million immigrants were lured to the prairie provinces by the government, the railroads, and freelance land agents.
Lured is the right word.
Yes, absolutely.
Baited.
Yes, because people wouldn't come here on their own.
No.
The settlement of Western Canada and the construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway was done to prevent American takeover of the West and to provide economic opportunities. The joke was on the government, however. Once the railway was built, the majority of the first settlers came from America.
We stole them, at least. They realized they were the early ones. They realized, Canada, they could see what was coming in America. So let's get over the border.
Yeah. Let's go now while the getting's good.
And they're just trying to, and they're in the American sort of in the American West and going, wait, Wyoming, this sucks.
It's the agricultural land's probably even worse there, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very cold, though.
Yeah, it's pretty chilly.
Can confirm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Aside from sex and whiskey-based enterprises, frontier Canada was remarkably law-abiding, and in all other ways, the West was becoming the dominion of Sabbatarians and moral guardians.
What's a Sabbatarian?
Keep a Sabbath?
Yeah, exactly.
Like keeping the Sabbath. Okay, got it.
Some kind of Protestant denomination.
I would. If I saw it written in front of me, I'd understand entirely. I was thinking like sabot, like a saber. Okay, I get it.
That'd be cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
Moral prudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emphasis was on the settlement of agricultural lands. Railways obtained millions of acres of farmland, which they sold on favorable terms. Governments offered free homesteads to potential settlers. This was an attractive proposition to the Irish, Scots, and English of all professions. Thousands took up homesteads, but then retreated to the cities and towns, quote, after nature demonstrated the folly of their action.
Yeah.
You cocky bastards. Have some minus 40.
Just when you thought it was safe to go outside.
Yeah.
I had a moment living in northern Alberta where I was outside and I'm like, oh man, why would anybody live here? It's so cool. Oh.
Yeah. Why did the air hurt my face?
Let's go, wait. Yep. That's why people live here. Work. But in this case, free land.
Yeah. Yeah, who can say no to that?
I mean, free stolen land, as it were, but...
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, everything's
Free, but
free
at
if you
what
steal it and
cost?
give it to someone else.
Mhm.
Yep. Railways brought instant towns, which came up virtually overnight. Brothels were among the firsts of a settlement, with railway stations and hotel bars. They came before churches and schools and were in business long before the first trains arrived.
So
Really?
the notion here is railway gets built and then there's a brothel just the moment there's people there.
Yeah, the moment anybody sets foot there, the first thing to come up is the brothel.
Damn.
Really?
Yeah. So
Well-
they're as soon as they start building the railway and there's any kind of activity around there whatsoever, there's sex workers.
I mean, I guess, yeah, if it's a lot of men working on these projects, I suppose, they're not going to have kids or families necessarily with them. So they're
Yeah.
not going to have necessarily, and, you know, it's more fun than church, I suppose. So I'll build that later.
Yes.
There is, I think, so much of settlement and colonization is based, and the legacy that it leaves today, so much of it is based around large numbers of men
Mhm.
showing up somewhere and just humping anything that moves.
Yes. One of the reasons the brothels were allowed to exist was because people were afraid of just that, men humping anything that moved. And if there weren't women there,
Oh,
would
they'd
they
hump
go
each other.
Would they hump each other?
Well, can't have that. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, they can't pray away the gays, so I guess we'll put this in instead.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no church yet, so. Yeah.
It's like, and here's the brothel, which is here purely because of homophobic instincts. What?
That is fascinating. Did not know this. I mean, I knew the general outlines of this kind of thing, but you don't
Yeah.
see
Only they had
this
settler
kind of story
Yahweh
very
back then.
often.
It'd be a real country.
Yeah, so
What
it's
was that?
one of the reasons. What did you say, Dave?
Oh, if only we had settler Yahweh back then we'd be a real country.
What's
Yahweh
that?
being a term for erotic man-on-man romantic fiction in manga.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's an inspiration for a series for you. You can write.
Oh, God, Yahweh? Oh, wow, that would be a rabbit hole.
Based on railway workers.
In more ways than one, because sometimes they're rabbits. Anyways.
Oh, Dave.
You know what? I think the less I know about that subject for now, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Unbelievably popular with women. My God. Anyways.
Huh. Well, that's another episode for you. I'd be fascinated to know more, maybe.
I'd be a little worried to know more, but okay, bring it on.
You'll stop associating anime with only gross dudes and start associating with gross women instead.
Okay.
Yay. You know what? Fine. Women can be gross too.
From early reports of the Northwest Mounted Police, the number of brothels were one way to gauge the progress of railway construction. The Mounties were spread so thinly that they could not have possibly kept every settlement under surveillance, so they took a policy of taking action, quote, only when the activities of whores got boisterously out of hand. It is here that Gray takes note to point out that the word is pronounced whores.
That is correct. I love the notion that the Mounties have some sort of early 20th century tracking system, which is like the boisterous whore or o-meter, and you've got your KPIs on boisterousness in your whores, and then when it hits a certain point, it's like ding, ding, ding. Okay, let's go violate some human rights.
Yeah,
that sounds remarkably accurate.
Because they have a metal detector, headset and the metal detector thing with the sound, picking up the sound.
The way you said that sounded like MILF detector, which makes it even funnier.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I enunciate metal detector or a MILF detector. Yes, Mounties in the forest, hearing the sound of the uproar. I guess not in the forest at this stage. They'd be in the prairies, in the grasses.
Yeah, hiding in the long grass.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Nancy in Winnipeg. It's a false alarm.
How could you hide the brothel? You'd be able to see it for miles.
Yeah, that's true.
In Saskatchewan, particularly, Jesus. It's true. The prairie brothels, you can see. You can see your husband running away for 3 days.
That's right. There you go. Taking off the horizon.
Yep. The West became overrun with brothels because the first tides of immigration were mostly unattached young men. The weakness of men for booze and broads has existed since the dawn of time. For these men, bars, brothels, and pool halls were social centers, and young men visited brothels with the same casualness they would a bar or a pool room. Brothels were just a fact of life. They weren't visited secretly or with any amount of guilt.
Right.
That's
So
true.
instead of popping down to the pub after work for a pint, you pop down to the brothel after work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's an argument, again, normalization makes it more safe,
Yeah.
right? Because, just based on my dim recollection of history, medieval history, the social history, sex work was very common just among regular women. You're a seamstress or something, lace maker. Yeah, on the side, you might do a bit of sex work just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And because they had brothels in the center of town, they weren't isolated on the fringes of society where they're easy prey for predators and
And if people are
bad
in the
actors.
community, it
Yes,
means that harms done to them are going to be treated as harms to the community and thus
yeah.
policed by the community rather than if they are excluded from sort of, civil society
Mhm.
and these women are hurt, those hurts are then papered over and ignored.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's still going on.
Oh, yes.
Well, the prairies. Anyway.
But for the same length of time, this affinity has brought the guardians of public morality to outraged protest. Brothels
Mhm.
outnumbered churches 6-1, so it was a bit of an uphill battle, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh my God, my hometown has something like 17 churches for like 3,000
Wow.
people. So that
Hmm.
means that's going to be,
Hmm.
my
That
God,
is
like
a lot of
100
brothels.
brothels.
Hmm.
There are going to be more, like all of the new suburban development is just brothels.
And they're all in those houses that are like 3 feet apart from each other.
Oh, the milk carton houses.
Yes.
Yes. God, Edmonton's just ringed with brothels and Calgary's twice as bad.
Hmm.
Will they all have the same brothel color palette? Man, those developments would be way better if they were all brothels. The culture would be far more interesting.
This is true.
A bit unrelated to sex work is the rather amusing story of the founding of the town of North Battleford. When the builders of the Canadian Northern Railway reached Battleford, Saskatchewan, they discovered they were on the wrong side of the North Saskatchewan River. The railway was on the north, while the town itself was on the south. A surveyor drove a peg into the ground and called it North Battleford.
Mhm.
By that fall, North Battleford was a town of 500 people. In 2021, it had a population of 13,800 compared to Battleford's population of 4,400.
How do you do all that planning? It's on the prairies. How many rivers? I guess you
This
can
is
run
why
into a lot of
everybody
rivers,
makes fun of Saskatchewan. Oh my God. All the love to people in the Battlefords, North Battleford, rough town.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, bud.
On a road trip itinerary.
Yeah. Sex work was not confined to cities. Some women worked passenger trains from Winnipeg to the Pacific Coast. Some of them traveled in a circuit, and others went from town to town with pool sharks. Railway news agents always knew when a new woman came to town. There would be a flood of men buying contraceptives. Many of them made more money this way than they did selling fruit in magazines.
That's deeply unpleasant to hear.
It really is. I'm laughing, but it's also like, oh my God, this is a person, and it's
Yeah, men are gross.
It's it's again legal. Maybe you have more than one new person at a time. Hopefully,
yeah.
Pressure off,
When Jen's in charge of the world, we will have a rotation of whores.
Yes, exactly.
So there's a fresh supply for all communities.
That's right. Yeah. The term whore, I said, yeah. People going of their own volition. But I don't know. In my world, nobody would perhaps have to do that work. But who knows? Maybe it'll always be a necessity. Yeah, it does remind me, though, that I guess Deadwood is historically accurate with the whores in the language.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm like, yeah, Al Swearingen.
Sometimes a sex worker would like a town and decide to settle in. There's a story of one woman who bought a plot of land in Big Valley, Alberta. She put up a house and opened up shop. Some of the other women in town took offense and demanded their husbands run the woman out of town, but the men refused to do it. So the women took it upon themselves and torched the place. The sex worker left town after that.
Oh my God, it's the Springfield Bordello.
It is.
What?
There's a full Simpsons episode about this.
Right. He's on derriere.
They did a song and dance number and everything to convert the women, but then one person comes in with a bulldozer and it's all over.
Oh,
we put the spring in the Springfield.
That's right. It's a burlesque house.
There's our copyright strike.
Oh yeah, watch out for that. One line should be all right.
Yeah. The earlier arrivals were mostly from farm families who went directly to their homesteads in Manitoba. Later arrivals were mainly single men or husbands who left their wives and families at home so they could get established out west.
Hmm.
The building boom failed to keep pace with the need for homes. Jobs were plentiful, but places to live were not.
That's familiar.
I'm going to say, oh, geez.
Wow, we sure learned a lot from back then.
Yeah.
More things change, more they stay the same, right?
Cities could barely keep pace with the population growth. Between 1900 and 1911, the populations of Edmonton and Calgary exploded to nearly 10 times their size. There were a couple of financial panics during that time that certainly didn't do any favors for the attempt to keep pace with the demand for public services like schools, sidewalks, water mains, sewers, and hospitals.
Oh, God, that must have been chaos 10 times. Now, granted, when your population starts at 10,000 goes to 100,000, it's not quite the same as a million going to 10 million, but still.
Yeah,
Mhm.
still that's a lot to keep pace with.
Yes.
The men doing the building were basically all young, strong men. Says Gray, here, in short, was a male population in the prime of life, glowing with the virility of youth and in the superb physical condition which a steady diet of hard work produced.
So these men were sexy, is what this author is saying.
Yes, that's exactly what I
Really
was trying
important to
say.
understand how hot the settlers were.
They're young, they're hot.
Oh, no
Ready to work.
wonder they needed to have all these brothels to stop them from just like falling into one another's arms.
I guess so. I'm like, someone's got a crush.
Yeah. But there was a problem, and that problem was women. Specifically, there weren't that many women at this time, and it was mostly men coming out west. The single
Mhm.
men, with their virility and all that, were looking for female companionship.
Mhm.
Because these studs are horny.
Just cannot keep it together. Keep
Nope.
focus. You know,
Married
they're all too
men-
sexy. They're distracting each other with their virility and all.
Yeah, they're glowing and
Glistening in the
Mhm.
sun.
yep.
Mhm.
Married men, quote, reverted to type. I'm not entirely sure what Gray means by reverted to type, though I suppose it's something along the lines of reverting to what single men were like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we're looking for the same thing. More than a few married men found themselves married again.
Oh,
You imagine writing home to your wife to tell her that your new wife has moved in?
I don't think you'd tell her. I think it's one of those
Yeah.
things you keep secret. You have a wife in one place. You're the railroad wife when you got your
And
other wife.
Then you just delay moving your family in, and then a sitcom, comes out of that. Which
Oh, I feel
I'm sure it was
awkward
all funny
already.
and didn't end horribly for anyone.
I think that situation is surprisingly common throughout
Oh,
history.
I'm
Just the
dead
secret
certain it was.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Northwest Mounted Police had a policy of live and let live when it came to sex workers. There was a nearly universal acceptance that sex work had to be tolerated because it couldn't be eradicated.
That's
When
interesting at
poli-
the time as well. That
Yeah.
it's more, we associate that with more of a modern attitude, like we were saying, sort of the decriminalization
Yeah.
style attitude.
The cops were progressive without realizing they were being progressive.
Mm-hmm.
They were also probably Johns.
I mean, there was shortly after Louis Riel and the Red River Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was an outbreak of an STI in one location, and the cops carried it to a reserve
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
and infected most of the population there.
Yeah, that's another unpleasant.
Yeah, that's
unpleasant side of
gross.
history. That's pretty bad. But that
Long
is
history of
the
getting
thing.
fucked over by cops.
Mm-hmm. And that's the
Oh.
sort of other side of this as well. Is just the health implications. Like, I mean, you're saying contraceptives would go, sales would spike. You thinking that's probably condoms, right? Like the old fashioned. So hopefully they're doing something to mitigate. But you have to think, if you have that many brothels, you
Yeah.
have lots of STIs going around, and especially back of that day, like syphilis, like everything.
Yeah.
Limited recourse to treatment probably as well. Anyway, it sounds yeah. We say history is gross.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
When the police took action against sex workers, it was usually for a more important reason than they were simply sex workers. Reasons like hampering the construction of the railway. Alcohol and sex workers around the work gangs became threats to projects. To remove the threat, police raided brothels and charged women with being inmates of houses of ill fame, fined them, and ordered them to move on. When the pressure of the moral crusaders became too much to ignore, the police gave in and staged token raids. The workers treated the fines like licensing and willingly pleaded guilty.
Mm-hmm. That's basically what it is. You pay a toll. I mean, if they're actually leaving town, that's one thing, but they're still making money off it. They tolerate it until
It sets up basically a taxation system. It almost becomes this
Mhm.
sort of strange form of regulating it.
Mhm.
Yeah. But if the police became serious about driving sex workers out of business, the women would plead guilty, forcing the police to convict them in court. Everyone knew where the brothels were, but it was a lot harder to obtain evidence that would stand up in court.
Stand up, get it?
No.
Uh-huh. I mean, but
Driving women out of town was not a long-term solution. They just set up outside the city limits anyway, so the police tried to live with it.
Right. Like I say, they're visiting them too, so they're not. And again, that's kind of the hypocrisy of the system as well. It's they're not facing up to the reality of, look, this is just what is happening.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and it's this weirdness of having this social system that's been built up over a very long period of time with these moral codes that are incompatible with what's clearly the intrinsic way the society is set up in the first place. Because, I mean, from what it looks like is if you have shortage in the ability to exchange, sex work will show up because the women need to get by. They need, food, shelter, housing, etc. They need the things. They need money basically because money's required, and there's a shortage of women, and there's a surplus of men demanding sex. So that's just inevitably going to happen. Like this is your capitalism. This is what you wanted, right?
And it's extracting too. So it's extractive. So you, rather than say, oh well, why don't we build towns and send whole families out there? It is okay. All these single young men who are maybe more prone to, like we say, all their virility. But this is all planned, right? Too. So we have the situation where they're actively encouraging them to visit sex workers and punishing the sex workers for what basically they're just filling a demand, right?
Yeah.
And that's how patriarchy regulates.
Yep, it is. And it's just, the very hypocrisy of the Victorian system too, where it is in fact like, oh no, it's a fact of life, but they are in sort of deep denial about that. It's interesting how that plays out in the Canadian prairies too.
Yeah. None of the bigger settlements showed any particular interest in suppressing sex work, and the attention of civic leaders were often on other things. A jail was a frill few towns thought they could afford, meaning even if sex workers were arrested, there was simply nowhere to put them. Cities needed to grow and develop before a dedicated jail for women could be built.
Well, I mean, at least a jail is low on their list of priorities. A jail for women, I mean, I'm glad it's low on their list of priorities. That's good. They don't need to jail these women. Like, come on.
In the town of Medicine Hat, women were simply sent home. And if there was a charge, the chief of police would send word when she was to appear in court. This was the summons system before the summons system was actually invented.
It's wild how these kinds of things come about.
The existence of sex work was a challenge to the dominant Anglo-Saxon Protestant churches. They railed against the laxity of police. When the police cracked down and confined sex workers to segregated areas, the moral reformers became angrier. It wasn't entirely clear what they wanted. Did they want the police to run the women out of town or just keep them to their own little area? Generally, they did want the women run out of town, but that really didn't help.
Right, for the reasons we stated. It's the contradictions where this is basically an essential service at this point, given the way these towns and settlements are structured. So they are between a rock and a hard place.
This is something we see again and again with how a lot of our economic and social systems are set up, where it's honestly, it's almost like something like people being unhoused, where, well, you have engineered poverty, but now you want all the impoverished people to somehow just not be here.
Yes.
Well, you engineered this, but no, what we need to do is push them out, hide them, social murder, and try to exclude them from, like, basic operation of civil society and all that kind of thing. But it's this, again, for someone to be rich, someone else has to be poor. And this then applies sort of in the same way to sex work, and how the very nature of how they set up these communities not only invites, but kind of requires the existence of sex work. But the sex workers, of course, need to be morally crusaded against because sex work is immoral. And we just need to magically have all of these basic things that happen every single time you do this just not happen by yelling at people enough. And it just simply doesn't work.
Go ahead. And how can you say, oh, these young men are so young and virile, and they just do what's in men's nature, and then punish women for providing a service to that so-called nature, right? Like, it's blaming the victims a lot of way. They're providing a service. Why? What do you? You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
it's That's the
But it's a way to
that,
blame women for
Yes.
your own. Well, you know.
Yeah.
well,
Put the
just
blame on
like
them. Like,
capitalism blames the poor, patriarchy
Yeah.
blames the women when neither have actually done anything wrong here.
No, that's right.
There's no moral failing on their part.
No.
The interest from the clergy was intermittent, though. Combating the evils of alcohol took priority. Sex work was the lesser of two evils. Catholics took a bit more tolerant view of booze and sex work. The Anglicans were somewhere in between. With time, alcohol became the bigger problem of the two. More families were affected by alcohol than sex workers.
I buy that.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
It is fascinating how people throughout history were trashed like all the time.
Yeah.
They're on something. They're on laudanum, or they're just drunk. You know. Anyway, it's very interesting. So yeah, I can imagine the chaos too. These little these settlements.
Usually alcohol was served at brothels. It was the primary source of the revenue. So drunk, rowdy clients were terrible for business. They bought less alcohol and required too much care when they eventually got sick and passed out. The drunks were loud and it attracted the attention of the neighbors, which could result in a visit from the police and financial losses. A primary reason for the women not to let the men drink too much was violence. One madam was murdered by a drunk man in Edmonton. This quote comes from the paper The Other Little House, The Brothel as a Colonial Institution by L.K. Bertram. If they are drunk, we fear them. We never get over this fear.
Oh, yeah. That's another aspect too, is the very dangerous nature of the work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're drunk, we fear them, we never get over this fear. That is a chilling quote.
Yeah, it is. Winnipeg was the jumping off point for the scattered settlements of the West, and it set the fashion for Western cities. Pious settlers, typically Anglo-Saxon Protestants, from Ontario started coming after the construction of the Winnipeg to Pembina railway line in 1878. The Winnipeg pattern of city planning was a railway station first, then around it were hotels and bars and stores providing plenty of employment for any who decided to stay in Winnipeg. Then beyond that were warehouses and retail stores, then houses. Regina, Saskatoon, and Calgary all had similar layouts.
And it's flat, so it's a very grid-like pattern.
Yeah, and if you look at Calgary now, like, I don't have a lot of experience with Calgary, short of driving around it, but you see all of these, like, just acres upon acres of houses that are around the highway, and you can see, like, over ridges and things. It's just all houses.
Yeah, which we've established are all brothels.
Yes.
That's right.
Milk carton brothels.
For every church you see, there's 7 brothels?
Yeah.
Remember that
6 of them.
You're going through Alberta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if these numbers are still accurate, but who knows?
Yeah, they are a little dated.
Oh, just 150 years old.
Aside from religious leaders, the citizens of Winnipeg didn't seem too bothered by sex work. They were more concerned, judging by the letters to the editor around that time, about home rule in Ireland. I'm not sure which side they were on, but they certainly cared.
Worried about it either way.
Yep.
If they're Protestants, they would have been worried about independence.
Yeah.
I can't even comment because I really have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to the Troubles.
Winnipeg had more than 200 women employed in 48 brothels on McFarland and Annabella streets.
2 streets.
Yep.
That is a significant number.
The Reverend Dr. J.B. Silcox insisted that all that was needed was for the police to drive the sex workers out and keep them out. Sounds like a pretty simple plan. Funny the police never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, all problems can simply be solved with, just by trying really hard. Because nobody had done that before in human history.
Yeah.
That's right. And just tell people to go away, and there'll be somebody else's problem, and they just vanish. Like we do with homeless encampments now. Oh, well, just get them out of here. Where should they go? Oh.
Yeah.
But we got to trash all their stuff. That'll help.
Yeah, exactly. Just throw away all their worldly possessions. That'll help them get on their feet. Again, very little has changed in some respect.
Probably because the women would just set up shop outside the town where they would no longer be under the jurisdiction of city police.
Right.
So yeah, you can push them out of the city and keep them out, but they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, it's kind of like problem solved. Sweep it under the rug. It's on the outskirts of town. Becomes more dangerous again for the women.
Yeah.
But they don't care about that.
Yeah, because if they're outside of town, they're then further from any kind of necessary services.
Yeah, that's right.
The dominant segment of Winnipeg's business community was real estate. Occasional confrontations between real estate promoters and brothel operators caused some of the moral eruptions. Frederick Duval, an American-born Presbyterian pastor and, quote, pint-sized zealot, arrived in 1888 and served Winnipeg for nearly 20 years.
That guy sounds great.
He does.
Yeah, just fun at parties. A pint-sized zealot.
Yes.
Little Napoleon over here.
In the fall of 1903, Duval and his associates turned their attention from booze to brothels. When sermons failed to accomplish anything, he had all the men of the congregations of the largest churches stay to discuss the social evil that was sex work. It was said in New York City of sex work that segregation does not segregate and regulation does not regulate. Segregated cities there became nests of crime.
Well, yeah. You push everybody on the outskirts beyond regulation. Oh, there's crime?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm shocked.
700 people stayed for the meeting at the Central Congressional Church and voted overwhelmingly to close the Thomas Street brothels. Businessman E.D. Martin said the brothels were a threat to children because schools were going up in the site of the Thomas Street houses.
I don't know.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's always the excuse. It's interesting. They could follow the Dutch model. Say if you've ever been to like the red light district or in other European cities, perhaps other places where again they're more incorporated into the general neighborhood. You have sort of parts of the city neighborhoods that are maybe where that kind of work is concentrated, but it's still incorporated into the community again. Like you'd think it'd be better for business as well all around, but. That's why you have to force people to commute to work in the city downtown, right? Support the businesses.
That's true.
Do it with sex work instead.
Oh my God.
Draw people in with fun stuff instead of
the move
stuff.
to work from home and the collapse of offices has probably done an incredible number on the brothel industry.
That's right.
Are there still brothels?
I'm sure it has.
Yes.
Yep.
Uncommonly, they're not sort of a part of the social fabric of every community now. I mean, when we talk about sex work, we're mostly talking about OnlyFans and things like that nowadays, outside of the pornography industry, which OnlyFans is sort of a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the sex work classic is certainly still alive and well. It's just not what it used to be.
No.
The next night, the clergy rented the Winnipeg Theatre for 3 hours of denunciations to a packed house of 1,500. 2 days later, the clergy went to the
Nothing else is going on. I mean, they should the brothel instead.
Imagine being such a good speaker. You're more interesting than the brothel.
Yeah, I guess. How many people were just hate listening?
Yeah.
What else are you gonna do? You got know what's going on. You can't watch it on YouTube later.
I was about to say these were the podcasts of the day, which people can consume instead of watching pornography.
That's right.
That's our goal. To be more interesting than pornography.
Yeah. You should be listening to us instead of watching porn.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're listening to this, hopefully you're not watching porn at the same time. I mean,
if you're watching porn at the same time,
you
know what? Shine on, you. They're going to do them. Shine on, you crazy diamond. We're here for you.
I guess
I'd consider it a challenging wank at best.
Yeah. Well, I would think so. Well, you know what? This is a sex work episode.
Completes a Wonderkamer challenge.
I don't want to think what people are doing as they listen to this episode. Hopefully you're doing the dishes or walking your dog. You know what? No.
Driving to work.
About it. That's your problem. Whatever you're doing right now is your problem.
Do not attempt the Wonderkamer challenge while driving.
Okay. Yes, please don't.
2 days later, the clergy went to the police commission and demanded action against the brothels. This uproar exploded during the 1903 civic election campaign. The incumbent mayor was driven to retire from the race, leading Duval candidate Thomas Sharp elected almost by default.
Oh boy.
Was it like, this guy's going to close them, this guy's not, so they voted for the guy who's going to close them?
Yeah.
Or this guy's status quo and this guy's on a crusade.
Right.
Yeah. The sex work issue was important to the clergy, but it wasn't as important to other candidates who were worried about bigger things, like a better water supply, more bridges, and public versus private ownership of electricity.
Oh boy.
The voter turnout was one of the poorest in many years, making Sharp's win an easy one, with only voters sympathetic to his message going to the polls.
Oh,
so there was just no opposition, and they're but the water supply,
Yeah. Duval succeeded in putting most of the civic administration on record as favoring the shutdown of Thomas Street. The matter got quick attention from the new police commission, but Chief John McCrae regarded the Duvalites as meddling busybodies who would give his morality squad an impossible task.
He's right.
Yeah.
In this case, I agree with the police officer.
Yeah.
Broken clocks.
Yeah, that's right.
Keeping minor crime under control occupied most of the police's time. The task was continually complicated by a steady flow of crooks and sex workers coming up from the U.S. Chief McCrae added to the force as finances permitted.
Americans.
I
Of
love
course.
the idea that there's just this endless flood of crooks and sex workers flooding north of the border.
I just picture them crossing the parallel, 49th parallel, like, woohoo! Guns blazing.
You got
And
a
the
sleazy
crooks all-
saxophone
masks
playing as
on.
some guy.
Yeah,
as
the
some
crooks
kind of
all have
bandit
masks
mask.
and they're
Yeah,
carrying a
sex
bag with a
workers.
dollar
Yeah.
sign on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, your classic criminal types crossing the
Mm.
border.
Yep. Chief McCrae added to the force as finances permitted, but he was continually losing ground with Winnipeg's growth. His job was difficult enough without having the Thomas Street women all over the place where they couldn't be kept under the watchful eye of the police. McCrae was fresh out of sympathy with the Duval campaign.
But hey, maybe that's smarter. You set up. Well, no, that's actually less safe for women. You set up, your own private business. But how are you going to rent a place? You can't. Yeah, never mind. That's a bad idea on my part. You kind of need a brothel to be safe in this era, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, in any era, genuinely.
Yeah,
Because it's a workplace rather than it's a workplace, and there's other people around in case things get dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And by things, I mean men.
Yes.
Yeah.
On January 7th, 1904, the new police commission gave McCrae his orders: raid the Thomas Street brothels and drive the women out of business. It didn't help for McCrae to explain to the police commission that this would just spread the women out across the city. So in order to prevent leaks, he told no one about the raid. When the night shift arrived the following Saturday, he gathered the force together to issue his instructions. They would go at once to the Thomas Street brothels, arrest all of the keepers and their employees, and transport them to the police station. The raid went off without a hitch, though there was a great deal of confusion and protests from the customers.
Hey, my
Yeah.
dick is in there.
Individual houses had been raided before for unseemly conduct or on suspicion of harboring fugitives, but a raid on the entire street, quote, violated everybody's sense of fitness of things, including, if truth were known, that of most of the raiding policemen.
That is so interesting. That seems so, like, modern. You know what I mean? Like, how they are outraged that this brothel was raided.
Yeah,
Well, it's actually interesting. Like,
Well,
I don't know.
it's modern and it's not because,
Mhm.
again, when it's a part of the community, they see it's the natural order of things. And we know for a fact that if this gets blown up, it's going to become scattered and messier and worse.
Yeah.
Rather than things actually seem to work in an orderly fashion when you have a red light district.
Yeah, so they had a more sensible attitude towards it than we do now. I mean, it
And
depends
yes,
where you
because-
are again. If you're in the Netherlands or if you're in maybe Thailand, other places like this where it's more accepted and is more part of the community.
Well,
But
and
for most of the world, we've gone backwards on this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The only problem with the raid was transportation, in that there wasn't enough of it. While the police waited for more wagons to show up, they identified the brothel keepers and their employees. The names of the customers they were with were taken down, and the men were ordered on their way. It was a nice night, though, so the men stuck around for more excitement.
Or just chilling out, watching the raid. Hey, I was just
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. As the police brought their prisoners out, crowds jeered loudly and followed the parade of sex workers to the police station. The Manitoba Free Press reported that men stood 10 deep in front of the station and hooted at the police as they arrived.
So they're arresting the women and letting the men go. Right.
It's kind of incredible that this is
So-
basically competing angry mobs between men and their wives.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
The
Like, I'm on the
Manitoba
women's side, whoever they are.
Yeah.
This is absolutely backwards. Oh, this is moral sin. Well, I guess not in their patriarchal view, of course, but it is interesting that the men who are going to these places of their own volition, let them go. But the women, I know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's exactly
Less
it. It's
dumb.
always
that's
punish the
not
women,
a
never the
surprise.
men, because
Yeah.
it's about enforcing a social order.
Right.
The Manitoba Free Press also reported that 12 madams were arrested, along with 72 inmates and 4 male porters. Chief McCrae ordered a guard posted on Thomas Street to stop people from looting the vacant houses. The keepers were all fined $40, while the employees were fined $20 each. Then they were all warned that segregated sex work was over in the city and they must either leave town, reform, or face stiff penalties if ever they showed up in court again. The women paid little attention to the warnings. They paid their fines, got rid of their houses, and moved to new locations in the city.
Yeah. Well, what else is supposed to do? But
Yeah.
it's interesting how, again, the brothel is a revenue generator for the city because, again, they're paying fines, but also, we get to just steal all their stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it is interesting when you look at the history of things, how much it is about taking people's things.
Oh, yeah.
Like, of course, again, it's about property and, it's interesting how that plays into it yet once more. It's opportunity to take their, their housing, their buildings, their possessions, in addition to the fines. It's a revenue generator that way, too.
Yeah.
So again, further exploitation, perhaps.
Having achieved victory, the clergy dropped the subject of sex work, though they would occasionally return to the topic of fallen women at other times. The Reverend Charles W. Gordon had a series of lectures developing the idea that women were to blame for sex work and the men who patronized them were moral lepers that should be named and shamed, but mostly they focused on the evils of alcohol. So yeah, it's always the women's fault.
Yeah. Oh, it's just men's nature.
Yeah.
That is also part of it too.
Yeah, boys will be boys.
And again, patriarchy can't function if the men are punished for behavior in a way that women are not, or in equal measure.
Yeah.
It's no longer patriarchy in the entire social system they're trying to enforce, which is based upon exploitation of women in specific ways, whether within the home or in the brothel or wherever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. After scattering the women of Thomas Street, the police would get no more cooperation from the women. Previously, the police would stage their periodic raids, the madams would plead guilty, the fines would be paid, and everyone would move on. But these days were over now, and the police were going to need to prove their charges. Every single one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're not going to do them any favors.
I love malicious compliance with getting arrested.
Yeah, smart.
It was not enough for the police to prove some houses had unusual numbers of people coming and going at all hours. As long as the occupants behaved, the keepers couldn't be convicted of running disorderly houses. To get a conviction, the police needed the testimony of someone who was there and paid for services. Chief McCrae was prepared to have the morality squad watch the house from outside, but he wasn't about to have his men go inside and become accessories to the commission of an offense. But if the police refused to fabricate evidence, how could the law be enforced? Stool pigeons. Men would visit.
Such a waste of time. Like isn't there a lot of violence in this era as well? Like, aren't people being killed?
No, it's settler era. It's settler era Winnipeg. It was fine.
Like, yeah, isn't there a lot of violence happening they could be focusing on instead of like this?
Men would visit a sex worker and pay her with marked money. Then he'd testify against her in court.
Bastard.
In July,
that's actually very exploitative too. That's pretty gross. Again,
I was about to say.
Gets worse. In July 1905, the city had a request from the police commission to put up a $250 secret service fund that Chief McCrae could use to buy testimony.
Come on. They're again playing the system. How convenient. Paying these undercover officers to have sex with women and then testify against them.
Oh, they're just normal men.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as bad.
Yeah, it is. There was no way that city patrolmen could cope with sex workers being on the streets. The policemen, mostly due to their height, but also their goofy London Bobby-style hats, could be spotted a mile away.
Oh, man. It's like the red coat approach to battle. Just right out in the open. No, everyone knows where you are. I mean, I guess it's fair of them, where the cop is. They're not being sneaky and underhanded. But it doesn't make their job any easier, I suppose. Duval
stated that what Winnipeg needed was more zealous law enforcement by city police. The city council agreed and upped the secret service fund from $250 to $5,000. And for the next 3 years...
Man! So the cops have always been massively overfunded. Crack down.
And for the next 3 years, minus a few casual references, the controversy faded from view. It faded from view, but it wasn't gone.
I was about to say.
In 1907, the police managed to convict the keepers of 71 brothels and 101 sex workers. Next year, those figures doubled. In 1908, Magistrate T. Maine Daly kept track of the number of young girls coming before him on morals charges. When the number hit 16, he decided enough was enough. Daly was known as the terror of the underworld for his harsh sentences for criminals, but when it came to sex work, Daly was tolerant and understanding. He wrote a letter to the police commission, and the idea of it was that since 1904, we're at April 1909 here, things had gone from bad to worse. He produced a list of over 400 sex workers from over the 5-year period since the raid and removal of the houses on Thomas Street. In the end, he moved for the repeal of the 1904 resolution and, quote, all matters relating to houses of ill fame and immoral women be left to the chief of police, he to act in accordance with his discretion and best judgment.
Stop clogging up my court with this bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. The motion was unanimously accepted by the commission. McCrae established a red light district under his control. The houses had to be concentrated in one area. He had a meeting with one of the leading madams of the day and had her spread the news. They undoubtedly discussed locations, but whatever was said, it was settled on an isolated area in Port Douglas along the Red River. So the sex workers were back to having a segregated area for their work, rather than just being scattered all over the streets of Winnipeg. This kept them out of the more polite neighborhoods and had them concentrated in a smaller area of the city where police could keep their watchful eye on them.
Seems reasonable.
And probably skim a ton of the money.
Oh, probably.
Well, that's right. Yeah. But no, that seems like a reasonable solution, you know?
Yeah.
As long as everybody's safe. And they are doing it in cooperation with the sex workers, it sounds like, as well. Or at least the madams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Saskatoon was founded by Sabbatarian prohibitionist zealot and still became a haven for sex workers.
God bless.
The appearance of new sex workers in Regina was explained by saying they were recent arrivals from Saskatoon. When Edmonton would crack down on sex work, the women went to Saskatoon. Winnipeg workers who needed a change of scenery were shipped off to Saskatoon. Basically, Saskatoon is a lovely little city for some sex.
Right. Ah, damn.
You know, and it's nicely connected. There's going to be railways between all of them. And so, yeah, Edmonton to Saskatoon to Winnipeg and Saskatoon down to Regina. Perfect.
You know, we had a whole system. We had sex work. We had trains that were regularly
We used to be a real country.
Rail. It's true, actually. Yeah. In this case, we were like Europe, you know? Look what they took from us.
We were cool.
Oh, don't get me started on the Kootenays. It was like steampunk future in the past. It was all steamships and railways. Not anymore.
Yeah.
We had a really cool thing going.
I think steampunk future in the past was just called the Age of Steam.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. My way sounds cooler.
Yes.
Steampunk future in the past. It was real, man.
But based on its origins, no Western city should have been a match for Saskatoon's high-toned morality. It doesn't help, though, that the moral reformers that sought to found a city were completely inept. This was the temperance...
I love it.
This would be interesting clash of cultures.
Ineptitude versus not? I'm sorry, Tracy, continue.
Well, no, that's fine. Yeah. Keep going.
She's never going to start.
Sorry.
This was the Temperance Colonization Society, the TCS, and their settlement was almost an instant disaster.
The Temperance Colonization Society?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, that's one of the most vile things I've ever heard.
Yeah, it sounds bad. Doesn't sound fun. Society, okay. Everything else.
Yeah. The TCS started as a for-profit idea by J.A. Livingston, a tycoon from Toronto. He discovered the federal government was selling off homestead land in the West to settlement companies for $1 an acre back in 1881. He told this to his fellow tycoon and prohibitionist J.N. Lake. They formed a company together and purchased 100,000 acres with plans to obtain 2 million acres in total, which they would then sell to prospective settlers.
Right.
While making arrangements and forming the TCS, they started selling shares in the company and the land. They wanted to take advantage of Ontario's great prohibitionist zeal. Their plan was to obtain a large enough tract of land for settlers to, quote, live free forever from the threat of distilled damnation.
So it's basically a temperance cult.
Yes.
Oh,
that is
exactly.
exactly.
And they're buying a bunch of land. Yeah.
Okay.
We are going to build a utopian society with no hoorers.
No alcohol, which also, I guess, would mean...
Implies.
Implies.
Understanding that the alcohol was the greater social scourge at the time. An actual one.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, look, I still think alcohol is a scourge in society, yes, but I'm not... This sounds like a nightmare to me.
Yeah,
I still would not want to join a temperance cult.
Each settler had to sign a pledge never to permit alcohol to be brought onto or consumed on his land. So Livingston and Lake had their company, and now they're 2 million acres, covering roughly 55 square miles. Certain they could insulate themselves from liquor traffic. But there was a problem, only a small one. The teensy tiniest of problems. They knew
Like it's gonna
nothing
be a
of the
big problem.
prairies.
Oh, sorry, I missed
They-
that.
You jumped
They
on the
knew
button,
nothing-
Jen.
I know.
They
You can
knew
just read-
nothing of the prairies, the land, the climate, transportation, or agriculture.
Amazing.
Oh.
They had no
Well-
idea what they were doing.
Yes.
Might be a little bit of a problem.
And they seem to have not read the fine print of their agreement with the Dominion of Canada.
Hmm?
The government
Not
certainly
allowed. Yeah.
certainly set aside the 2 million acres, but they also decreed that the society could only take the odd-numbered sections and not all of them. The prairie was being surveyed into a grid system of sections of 1 square mile. There were 36 sections in each township, all numbered 1 to 36. And in each township, sections 11 and 29 were designated for schools, while sections 8 and 26 were dedicated to the Hudson's Bay Company reserves.
So they're planning a community, not just, clusters
Yeah.
of land.
Yes.
All
Dominion-
connected.
The Dominion of Canada retained ownership of even-numbered sections, so the map became a giant checkerboard, with society sections being dry, as in no alcohol permitted, and the Dominion sections being wet. This destroyed the basic idea of the settlement.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
That's a logistical nightmare to try to what do you literally have borders
Yeah.
and checks
They plan the utopian society and the government owns half of it.
Well, good. There's no way that is not going to devolve into a sex cult, despite
Yeah.
the temperance aspect.
Absolutely, because that's what happens to all cults.
Except for, it occurred to me, Heaven's Gate. That was
Oh.
opposite. It was a no-sex
Yeah.
cult.
Mhm.
But all the
Yeah,
rest of
that's-
them, yeah.
Still, Livingston and Lake managed to sell off 3,000 tracts of land to Ontario buyers. However, only a handful of buyers planned on actually going west. They were mostly land speculators looking to sell at a profit.
Right.
Undeterred, the directors, headed by Lake, headed out to their land in 1883, armed only with a map of the general area, which happened to be dead in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
It only took 3 weeks for them to get to the site, stopping for a full day of rest on Sundays, of course. Then, satisfied with the land, they returned home to prepare for the settlers departing the following year in 1884. The next year, however, instead of a house building boom, there was just a smattering of shacks and surveyors' pegs in the town site. Lumber was floated down the South Saskatchewan River and arrived so waterlogged that it was unusable. When the settlers arrived, they arrived to a massive prairie fire. So, all in all, not a
That'll
mistake to start.
That's incredible.
So, all
Why
in
is
all,
it meant for settlement? I don't know. I don't think.
I don't think so. So, all in all, not an auspicious start to the city.
That all burned down. I mean, all the stakes burned down.
Yeah. In 1884, the promoters managed to get less than a dozen families onto their land. Wherever they stopped, they were met with questions. Why buy land from the Temperance Society when it was available for free as homesteads from the government? And why were they 150 miles, 240 kilometers, from the railway when there was land available close to the Canadian Pacific Railway?
Mm-hmm. All good question.
What are we doing here?
In 1886, settlement was so slow that the Dominion cancelled the deal with barely 100 settlers in the society block. It took 15 years for Saskatoon to become more than just a handful of shacks, but once the railway boom started at the turn of the century, the area exploded into life. A church site that was bought for $500 in 1904 sold for $42,000 in 1910.
Yep.
Damn.
A downtown corner bought for $450 in 1904 sold for $47,500 in 1911.
That's
That is
$1911.
insane.
I think that's $1971.
Oh, okay, I see.
But still, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
By 1914, there was 150 real estate agents in a town of 10,000 people. And the Temperance Enclave?
Worse than rats. All apologies to any real estate fans who are listening. Like and subscribe.
Apologize to any rats.
That's right.
Like and subscribe.
Apologies.
Yeah.
We'll take the rats. Just because we're Albertan doesn't mean we won't take the rats.
Mm-hmm.
And the Temperance Enclave? It was gone without a trace. There was no evidence that it had ever existed. By 1909, there was so much drinking and sex work that it drew the wrath of the clergy.
Well, what do they expect at this point? Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Look, we tried it God's way and it didn't work.
Sex work in Saskatoon was unique. In one place, brothel patrons were offered 3 choices of race by color. There was a white brothel, a black brothel, and a Japanese brothel. They're so progressive.
Yeah.
The first brothel area was close to the main construction area in the southwest corner of what became Riversdale, where the city dump was located and might still be in the 1970s. With the construction of bridges and the railway, the brothels had their own boom, but once the construction was over, so was the brothel boom.
Oh no.
The best illustration of Saskatoon's general attitude towards sex was the Babe Belanger case, heard by the Superior Court in 1910. Babe ran afoul of the Mounties and was run out of town the previous fall. She went to Regina, but found the climate to be unhealthy. So she settled in a little place called Broderick, about 30 miles, 50 kilometers south of Saskatoon.
To be fair, if you've been to Regina, I agree with her.
Yes. Every time I go there, it's just a dust bowl.
It's just the worst features of every prairie city, which tend to be unlovely to begin with none of the charms of the more charming prairie cities. So, like, imagine Edmonton without the charm. That is grim. And Edmonton is not that charming.
Yeah, I didn't want to say, but yeah.
I've spent many, many, many years in Edmonton. You know, I love that city, but charm isn't necessarily its strong point.
Yes.
No.
Babe wanted to return to Saskatoon, but she was worried the Mounties would pick her up for an outstanding sentence and force her to serve time. So she wrote the Mountie in Saskatoon with a proposition. She told them that she would like to come back and run a small business with only one girl so she could run a quiet place. If the Mountie gave his word that she could run without trouble, she would make it worth it for him to the tune of $100 every couple months. Instead of replying, the Mountie took the letter to his superior, who signed a warrant for Babe's arrest on the charge on the charge of bribing a police officer, which was a penitentiary offense.
Ugh, lame. Take your bribe like a man.
The case became a minor cause célèbre. When it came before a judge and jury in January 1910, the letter was produced and read. Babe explained it away as being just a joke she played on the Mountie. The jury chose to believe her story and she was acquitted. The judge...
You know what?
Speaking of charm, she clearly had some.
Mm-hmm.
The judge lost his mind.
Really?
Sending a sex worker to jail was clearly not the way the men of Saskatoon thought Babe should be treated.
You know?
One of the critical problems for Saskatoon sex workers was finding a place to ply their trade. The housing congestion was beyond description. Even bank tellers and store clerks found themselves living in tents. By spring 1912, things were so bad that the city councilors tried to lease churches downtown as dormitories for women and children who were refused accommodation in hotels.
I can't get over the bank tent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just deposit your money in the tent. Don't worry, it's completely secure. I got a dog.
There's a lock on this box.
There you go.
I put a lock
Just
on the
one.
tent. It's fine.
Making matters worse, one downtown rooming house evicted all its regular male tenants and turned the place into accommodation for sex workers. There were lots of sex workers. In November 1914, a small-time Saskatoon burglar made a statement in Edmonton that resulted in charges against Alderman Joe Clark. This set off an investigation by the Saskatoon Police Department.
I know Joe Clark is old, but...
Not that Joe Clark. This is Clark with an E.
Oh, fair enough.
Yep. Makes it old-timey.
Wait, that's Nixon. Anyways, go on.
Criminal Frank Heaton said that as the result of a deal made by Clark with Detective William Springer of Saskatoon, he and 2 other thugs went to Edmonton to launch a crime spree with the intention of making the new police chief look bad. He mentioned they had an arrangement with Springer in Saskatoon that gave them protection from arrest there, providing they stuck to burglarizing other places. Clark was able to bring enough witnesses to discredit Heaton's story, and in the end, Heaton himself repudiated the story, and Clark was acquitted. Heaton said that it was all a plot by the new police chief in Edmonton to destroy Clark.
It's very convoluted.
This is cockamamie.
I mean...
Cockamamie. It's a cockamamie scheme.
Like, what is this? A sitcom?
Yep.
Could be a good one.
Heaton's original story was enough to prompt the Saskatchewan Attorney General to set up a court of inquiry under Justice E.A.C. McClurg. During the winter of 1915, McClurg listened to testimony from sex workers, policemen, and citizens. When the chief detective wanted a new winter quote, he simply passed word to burglars who did some after-hours shopping for him. Patrolmen were told to leave morality affairs to the detectives. When they didn't do this, there was trouble. Constable Gray reported a complaint from 2 sex workers that they were hounded from room to room because they wouldn't pay off 2 detectives. Then, when he tried to chase a disorderly woman off his beat, she defied him to touch her because she was a friend of the chief and a sergeant. So he prodded her on her way, and the next day he was transferred to the windiest, coldest beat in the city.
Oh my God.
That's the ultimate punishment.
I also like the way that sentence came about because it's like, I'm a friend of the chief and I'm a sergeant.
No, and a sergeant.
I know. I just intentionally misinterpreting that because it's funny for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The chief of police resigned when the inquiry was still in progress. He was found guilty of condoning fabrication of evidence and undue oppression of certain women. The detectives were found guilty on all counts: harboring and protecting criminals, inciting criminals to commit theft, taking hush money, fabricating evidence against innocent parties, consorting with bad characters, and general laxity. Most of the Saskatoon police force was fired.
To protect and serve, baby.
Most of the Saskatoon police force was fired.
I love
A new
it.
A new police force was hired, but they still had little success in suppressing prostitution, in suppressing sex work. So Saskatoon...
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I was too slow in the uptake there. The buzzer.
So Saskatoon, instead of being a beacon of morality, ended up being just like the other cities, though maybe not quite as bad as Calgary. And I say bad, but I don't mean sex work as being bad. I mean just as much trouble between the police and the sex workers.
And also just because Calgary's bad.
Yes.
I mean, there's that.
They never earned those cowboy hats.
Except your great-grandfather.
My great-grandfather was a cat boy.
Yep. It's a long story. I shouldn't have brought it up.
Okay, well, maybe we'll say that
in
for
1912.
a bonus episode one day.
Yeah.
The history of the Catboy Grandpa.
Yep. In 1912, Calgary was becoming the booze, brothel, and gambling capital of the Western Plains, and it smelled very strongly of horse. When Calgary's population exploded...
You're saying horse.
Horse.
Okay,
like
just getting the word right there. Continue.
Four-legged.
Yeah, horse.
Yeah. Horse.
Sounds like horse over here. Why would they talk that way? Anyway.
Man, I hate them horse girls.
Oh, yeah.
When Calgary's population exploded in the first decade of the 1900s, the horse population kept pace. The city was home to one of the biggest stables west of Toronto.
This is a story about sex work, right? Where is this going? Wow, we got all these horses. All these lonely young men. Virile young men.
Wow.
I'm just establishing Calgary at the time.
Fair enough.
Okay.
There was tons of manure that was piled up into a mountain before being carried away. The stable was located across the tracks from the train station. 60 teams of horses hauled freight, but in 1912, not even 60 teams could keep up with the freight brought in by the Canadian Pacific Railway. Calgary was a dusty, smelly pit of vice.
And nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
The Calgary boom was the product of the Canadian Pacific Railway's Great Land Promotion schemes. They had sent agents to the Great Plains states to look for settlers, and Americans by the tens of thousands flooded into Western Canada. Many of them headed directly for Calgary.
That's why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, Americans.
Mm-hmm. Makes perfect sense.
No offense to any American listeners. You know how you are.
American settlers were predominantly Protestant, law-abiding, and proud of it. Crime of any kind was almost unknown. There was a large German colony that took over the riverside area north of the Bow River. It appeared to be almost saintly when it came to compliance with the law. Calgary was remarkably free of serious crime during its early history. Crime
This is the lamest founding of a city ever.
Yes.
God, when you compare this to episode 1 in Destruction City, how far we fell. Even though Destruction City was 20 years later. But continue.
The city had needed only a rudimentary police force. Duties of the police officers were primarily breaking up drunken brawls. Had it not been for the alcohol, Calgary police would have been extremely bored.
Well, I mean, Give them something to do.
Yep. Newspapers referred to the sex workers in Riverside as the women from across the Langevin Bridge. It was an area just outside the city limits, so it was the jurisdiction of the Mounties. Calgary aldermen occasionally insisted on better cooperation between the city police and the Mounties to combat the social evil. But there is no record of that cooperation ever coming to fruition.
Shocked. Also, the
Two
women
police
across the
jurisdictions?
Langevin Bridge is really a kind of beautiful little turn of phrase. It's kind of mellifluous. There's it's like the cellar door of describing sex workers.
That's
Yeah.
right. Very classy euphemism.
Very.
It's finest euphemism so far. 10 out of 10. Best thing to come out of Calgary, aside from me. I guess my mom. Yeah, I'm the second best. Okay, anyways, go on.
In February 1907, a delegation from Riverside went to the city council to plead for help. Traffic to and from brothels was so heavy that it destroyed the peace of the neighborhood. Respectable residents had to deal with men forcing their way into houses looking for sex workers. Doors needed to be kept
Yikes.
locked night and day.
Oh, God.
That's, again, another disturbing fact. Disturbing scenario.
The aldermen were sympathetic, but pointed out how difficult getting a conviction was, especially because most houses were small-scale operations.
Oh, so they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong to just knock on the door and, oh.
Yep. The police took action against traffic. They cracked down on women going to visit friends for long hours in different parts of the city. But this was of minimal help to the residents. In the months that followed, there was a campaign against sex work led by the pillars of the community.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
One alderman is quoted as saying, "How can the police say there is no prostitution when we continually see these women flaunting themselves in their silks and satins, driving around in hired liveries, and employing Chinese servants?"
Oh, how dare they?
Silks and
That's pretty
satins,
awesome.
Chinese servants. I was about to say, this sounds like the
Fun
life.
life.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good to me. 4 men formed the Calgary Citizens Committee, which exerted pressure on the Attorney General to get an official inquiry ordered into the Calgary Police Chief's Department. When lawyers tried to prepare for the inquiry, they ran into trouble almost immediately. There was a lack of specific information, so the inquiry chose to focus on 6 general charges. 1. Body houses allowed within the city limits with knowledge and consent of the police chief. 2. Criminal prosecutions comprised and withdrawn with knowledge and consent of the police chief. 3. Intoxicating liquor sold in the city without a license with knowledge and consent of the police chief.
I've noticed a trend
4.
here.
4. Insulting abusive language used in public places towards citizens by the police chief.
That's fantastic. Also, he's an asshole.
5. The police chief didn't act in harmony with members of the force, whereby the interests of the city and justice have suffered. 6. Gambling allowed by the police chief.
Well, seems to be letting them get away with
Sounds
a lot.
sounds like a fun guy.
Yeah. It was apparent to the Calgary Citizens Committee and the lawyers that they need concrete accusations to get the ball rolling, so the committee men went out to gather evidence. George Wood, an idealist and social reformer, backed his convictions with his own resources. He was a real estate promoter by day and a dedicated welfare pioneer by night. At his home, he established a rescue home for fallen women and homeless children. From these women, he obtained the addresses of brothels. When he tried to talk to reformed women, they weren't really up for rushing into court to bear their shame to the world as the committee witnesses, so the committee needed to find other witnesses.
Well, also not going to rat out all of the women they worked with, right?
Yeah, and who wants to...
No, it's
go
just going to
before a
suck.
court?
It's like, I have to do this entire song and dance and like, I have sinned. And
Yeah, and who wants
that's
to
awful.
bear their shame?
They've had a time. Leave them alone.
Knowing sex work existed was one thing, but proving it turned out to be something else entirely. The committee hired Detective W.H. Walker for an undercover investigation, but he turned out to be incompetent. He found places to buy beer, but none of the women solicited him, so he turned up nothing.
He tried.
So they found 2 manual labor types, both named Charlie, with Wood and a man.
I don't know why Charlie's so funny. I just like that there's 2 people called Charlie.
Get a couple Charlies on it.
We're just going to go into a honeypot trap for sex workers.
And with Wood and a man named Tappy Frost, they went out on their...
What? Oh, stop. Tappy Frost?
Yeah, Tappy.
That is a beautiful...
Tappy.
What a name. Oh, incredible.
So anyways, with Wood and a man named Tappy Frost, they went out on their own excursions in the dead of winter. Wood and Frost would huddle back by the road while the two Charlies rang doorbells. But they were more afraid of the madams than the madams were of them. When doors opened, they'd blurt out a request for beer. Clearly only idiots would be out looking for beer on a cold night. Idiots are men up to no good. Either way, the madams wanted no part of it.
This is the worst sting ever. Like, it's so sad. I'm just imagining these two Charlies. Like,
can we have beer? No.
I imagine them as big dumb lugs.
Yeah, that's more accurate.
One girl said she didn't have beer, but if the Charlies wanted something else, it would cost $5. The men fled in confusion.
Oh, that's so good. I don't know what to do, Charlie. Me neither, Charlie. Let's get out of here.
Okay, Charlie.
The two Charlies were terrible witnesses. They forgot important details of their investigation, and what they did remember was jumbled and confused. Wood and Frost didn't do much better. They were able to pinpoint the existence of sex work, but there was no evidence against the chief of police. The inquiry heard that the reformers all lived close to the main brothel area. They and others had been solicited on the streets. Property values went down.
I can't get over how they, find me the two dumbest Charlies you can find. No, too dumb.
Yeah.
The commission called 3 madams to testify to the respectability of their neighborhood. They explained that their income came from investments or properties they owned elsewhere, or their husbands sent them money. They never sold liquor and saw no disorderly conduct in their neighborhood.
Upstanding citizens.
There you have it.
Absolutely. Police Chief Tom English boycotted the inquiry. Judge Stewart lashed out at all involved. The proceedings reflected no credit on any of the participants, he said. Houses of ill repute existed, that much was obvious. The police were ineffective in not knowing about the houses. The charges against the police chief were not proven, but the judge did find it regrettable that English hadn't shown up. The next police chief, Mackey, who was only responsible for vice inside the city. As mentioned earlier, it was the Mounties' jurisdiction outside the cities. But sex work was only a minor part of Mackey's problem. The population was just growing too fast. The city police had 18 men when Mackey took over for Tom English, and there were 70 by the time he quit, a mere 2 years later. When Mackey joined, policemen qualified through brute strength and ignorance. The primary
nothing has changed.
The primary requirement to be a cop was physical strength and size. Other desirable features were the ability to read and write, willing to work 12-hour days 7 days a week, and having a, quote, reasonable leaning towards sobriety.
Well, hopefully you can read and write.
And you're not drunk all the time.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay.
Yeah, now and again. Maybe 3 out of 5 days. Oh, no, 7 days. 5 out of 7 days. With new bylaws on the books, it was only a matter of months before the police found themselves with more to do than rousting drunks off the street. There were new sanitary regulations that had to be enforced. Loose cows and pigs had to be impounded. People used to throwing garbage in alleys had to be reprimanded. Boys riding bikes on sidewalks had to be stopped. Chinese laundries had to stop dumping tubs in ditches. And cars were having such an impact on street regulations that the traffic cop was thrust into existence.
City growing really quickly. You have all these infrastructure challenges for sure.
When are people going to start fornicating with the horses?
Enough with the horses. We left the horses behind. They pooped, and that was enough.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I grossly misread the situation. Carry on.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to establish Calgary as a smelly horse city.
That's fair. Beautiful, even.
And they're all horse fuckers, damn it. That's what Dave wants to hear. Sorry. It could be true. I'm not saying it is true. It's just...
It could be.
It could be true.
When Calgary annexed Nose Creek Flats, Mackey ordered his department to clean out the sex workers. They were immediately confronted with the problem of how. The law on sex work was... What?
A hose?
I know, just clean out. That struck me.
Right, I could have worded that better.
That's funny.
They were immediately confronted with the problem of how. Oh, I said that. The law on sex work was hazy, and successful morals prosecutions were difficult, as evidenced by the Stewart Commission. A few weeks later, Mackey caught a conviction that made headlines. It was expected that this would send sex workers running for cover. Maud Rogers was fined $250 for keeping liquor for sale and $50 for keeping houses of ill fame.
For then, $250 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 of her women were each given $35 fines for being inmates. These were the stiffest fines ever assessed in Calgary, and it did spread consternation through the business, for a little while anyways. Klondike Campbell built 4 large 3-story houses in the Nose Creek Hill coulee, which is a deep, steep-walled, trench-like trough. It's a type of river valley, in case you were wondering.
Yes.
Because I didn't know what a coulee was.
That whole string of words, I had to go one word at a time. Wait, Nose Creek Hill something.
When Mackey declared war on the brothels, the women moved across the tracks to the coulee. Stutterin' May King moved her entire house to the Nose Creek Hill.
Wait, Stutterin' May King?
Yes.
Oh my God.
People had much better nicknames back then.
Oh, they had such better nicknames back then. Stutterin' May King.
Yeah,
God.
It's not even
Flippy
stuttering,
Frost
it's
or Taffy
stuttering.
Frost. Beautiful.
The new location made it one of the most popular in the area. The biggest place was operated by Helen Hubert, who usually employed 6 or 7 women. 9 or 10 other brothels set up shop there, and there was a general store, of course.
Everything you need.
The Nose Creek Hill brothels prospered during the construction boom of 1912 and 13. Both Helen Hubert and Stutterin' May, quote, took steps to turn their houses into authentic palaces of joy. They brought in pianos and hired piano players, and Calgary nights were filled with music all summer long.
Kind of sounds fun.
Yeah. On Canadian Pacific Railway's payday nights, residents found it impossible to sleep through the noise. But the brothels had their dark sides too. The following quote comes from a report written by Superintendent Dean. I don't know what Dean's first name is, or maybe that is his first name.
Maybe just a mononym.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Dean.
On April 15 last, a tragedy occurred in the red light district of Nose Creek, which brought that community into prominence for the time being. A man named Joe Moore had sometime previously brought to Calgary a girl named Rose Smith, who had left her husband in Brooklyn. He had beaten the girl, who left him and took up her abode at Nose Creek. She was afraid of the man, and he had reportedly refused not only to return to live with him, but to see him. On this occasion, the girl said he might be admitted to the house, as she wanted to speak to him. The subject matter of their conversation can only be inferred, but the inevitable inference is that he requested her to return to him, and on her refusal shot her dead, then blew his own brains out.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I kind of wasn't surprised at that ending, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. The next chief of police was Alfred Cuddy, who had been an inspector with the Toronto Police Force. He was a professional policeman and undertook to put all the city's brothels out of business. In his 7 years as chief, he ultimately failed in his task, but he never stopped trying. Some members of the local Council of Women came up with a resolution for calling for jail sentences for sex workers. Cuddy approved, but he still had the problem that there was nowhere to put them. They couldn't be housed with the men, and the old jail was falling apart. It was considered barely suitable for housing animals. And there was only limited accommodation for women prisoners in the guardhouse. So the local Council of Women amended their resolution and sent it to the Alberta government in Edmonton to build a women's prison. The next year, Calgary built a new jail.
Yay. Progress. Yeah, that sucks.
So within a year, Cuddy claimed complete success in putting the brothels of the South Coulee out of business. But most of the sex workers just moved downtown. Cuddy never did manage to sweep the city clean.
Well, because it's an impossible task.
Yeah. Nose Creek Hill survived until circumstances, as much as the police, made it less viable. The most important factor in this was World War I. While permanent barracks were being built, the Army took over several downtown stores and turned them into living quarters. With the bars and barracks being downtown, it became the obvious place for the sex workers to go, and the Nose Creek Hill brothels were just too far away to compete with the women downtown, so the houses gradually emptied. In his attempts to uplift Calgary's morals, Cuddy got significant help from Prohibition, which officially started on July 1st, 1916. Cuddy observed that the abolition of bars prevented every type of crime. Arrests for drunkenness dropped 85% between 1914 and 1917. Cuddy was able to cut the number of police and give them 8-hour days with 2 days off per month. Under Chief Mackey, they'd be working 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
That's pretty interesting. So prohibition is this in... I wasn't that familiar with the history of prohibition in Canada. Is this in the city just, or is it provincial?
This is Canada.
Yeah.
Really?
No, Canada had prohibition, but it was not as long-lasting as the United States and did not leave as much as a permanent mark. But one of the things which is prior to enforcing prohibition, from everything I know, drunkenness was genuinely completely out of control. Understanding that human society has been pretty drunk for most of it, this was at an extreme.
Yeah. It happened throughout phases of history, like the gin craze in England in like the 1700s.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cheap gin became widely available, and it was pretty disastrous for a lot of people. Interesting. I did not know about that in Canada.
Despite Cuddy, the Criminal Investigation Division became more tolerant of brothels. Criminals would finish their job and head straight for the brothels, and the morality squad stuck to enforcing liquor and morality laws, staying out of police work. Sex workers survived both Cuddy and World War I and were ready for business when the flow of immigrants started after the war. But Calgary was a different city than it had been before the war. It wasn't the open city that it had been under English and Mackey. The bars were now gone from downtown. Gambling still existed, mostly because it was hard to make charges stick without proof. By 1921, the brothels largely returned to downtown. With the police switching from sex to liquor, the women experienced a switch in tactics with the morality squad. It was a lot easier for the police to catch women with illegal alcohol in their possession, and the fines were greater for booze than sex work. The cost of doing business rose sharply, along with the risk of being caught and fined. Downtown was where Pearl Miller launched her 25-year reign as Calgary's most famous sex worker. She turned up in Calgary from somewhere in British Columbia's interior and worked on 6th Avenue until she moved into her own house in 1926. She stayed there until 1929. During this time, she established a relationship with the son of one of Calgary's most prominent lawyers. He allegedly walked out on his family to set Pearl up in a house on McLeod Trail in 1929. The house quickly became the most famous one in Calgary. It catered to the highest classes it could attract. Oil men regularly dropped by for a drink, sex, and maybe a bit of bridge with Pearl.
Sounds pleasant.
Brothels were more than just places that sold sex. They also offered music, alcohol, dancing, and network opportunities. The brothels occupied a special place in settler male culture, and it made them essential to attracting and retaining settler and business presence in settlements. Many officials and investors thought the lack of a segregated vice zone was not only bad for business, but it could also threaten the future of a settlement. For example, the police tried to close down all the brothels in a town near Edmonton in the 1890s, but, quote, after 2 years, the businessmen had raised an objection to the closed town because of the decrease in business.
Right, the entire economy.
Yeah.
It's like one of the gears that turns within the town economy, and if you move that out, suddenly all the rest of the gears aren't turning.
Yeah.
Wild.
They attributed this to the fact that the town had no attraction for the hundreds of single men employed in various capacities in that section. They maintained that as soon as the men drew their money, they went to one of the neighboring towns to spend it. End quote.
Well, right. That's like with oil. What are they called? The camps in like northern Alberta and stuff. It's very similar. There's nothing else to do, so the people that work up there make a ton of money and spend it on like drugs and sex workers.
Yes.
This is very similar also to, just your businessmen meeting downtown, going to the brothels. It's like them going to strip clubs, sort of.
Fort McMurray.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you have this large number of men crashing into that and then getting a ton of money. And particularly during the boom times, it was all sex, work, and drugs, right? Where the money would go.
Eventually, Pearl decided that she could do even better with a different location. In 1935, she bought a house on the edge of Mount Royal, the most posh residential district in the city. And things were great while they lasted, which was until 1939. As a result of mounting police pressure following complaints from the neighbors, Pearl relocated herself back to her original Calgary location. She spent the war years there and retired in 1950.
Legend.
Go ahead. After Pearl's retirement, she caught a taste of religion. She made regular visits to her old haunts in order to try to save the women following in her footsteps. She died in 1957, a Calgary legend. Citizens, quote, wove their favorite fantasies and told their biggest lies. about
Oh,
her.
that's how you want to live on.
Yes.
Everyone making up shit about you.
Yep, there you go. A legend indeed.
Yeah. The biggest one of all was the one the Calgary Highlanders told about the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry and vice versa. Quote, the Pats were camped next to an American outfit before D-Day, and one of the Americans, who were great on slogans, tacked one up in the sergeant's mess, which read, Remember Pearl Harbor. The Pats went back to their outfit and had a sign painted to express their own feelings. It read, To hell with Pearl Harbor, remember Pearl Miller.
There you go.
Incredible.
So, in conclusion, I just want to stress that moral judgments about sex workers are pointless and even harmful. Sex work just is. The stories I've learned about and told here show again and again that sex work came with settler culture and is linked so intrinsically that it would be impossible to consider what these cities would be like without it. The incredible moral imperative from the deeply religious, strict laws, and stricter enforcement just made a mess and hurt people, rather than eradicating the industry. The moralizing doesn't fix anything. I'd like to say that I don't have any answers coming out of this, but the stories here have made me realize that because sex work is here to stay, the sex workers should be protected. Legalize the sex industry, unionize it, and keep women safe.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the story of sex work on the Canadian prairies.
That's fascinating. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's not something that's ever talked about.
No. All this history is very, well, hidden for a reason. I guess it's considered unsavory, but it is labor history too.
Yeah.
That's
social history.
One of the things I like about what we're doing this podcast is we can tell these labor stories and tell them as labor stories and just sort of recognize sort of the social forces at play here, and that, again, whether sex work is good or bad or not doesn't really matter. It just is. And the people who perform this work need safety, dignity, respect, good pay, reliable work, and benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like anybody else.
Yep.
Well, that's a really good episode, Tracy, about history of sex work on the prairies.
Thank you.
I find that, super fascinating. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to The Wonderkamer. Find us under The Wonderkamer on Blue Sky, YouTube, and Instagram.